I know a lot of you have asked the same question. Why did we remove the altar rails? That's a fair question, and I want to try to answer it honestly. But before I do, I want to say something else first. I know this hasn't been the only change you've had to carry. COVID, disaffiliation, moving from 3 worship services to 1, and now this. And that's a lot. If some of what you're feeling about the rail is really about everything else you've absorbed to get here, I understand that and I feel it as well. Some of you will say this is about the rails, and I understand why. It's the thing you can point to, but I don't think it's the only about the rails, and I want to honor that. What the rail itself meant to you and everything else it might be carrying. For those of you who have wondered how this came about, who made this call, I want to be honest about that too. I was approached by a longtime member of the church who came to me some time ago and planted the seed, asked whether we'd ever considered it, and that seed took hold. But the decision itself was mine. I made it. The altar rail has never been simply a piece of furniture. For generations of Methodists, it's been a place of prayer and repentance, healing, covenant keeping, and Holy Communion. Many of us have knelt there on some of the most important days of our lives, and I never want to minimize those memories. But grace is what makes Methodism distinctive. And of course, the rail never prevented anyone from coming. It welcomed generations of worshipers. What's changed is this: removing it allows the openness of the table, the openness of our theology to be proclaimed, of invitation, of welcome. And so now the architecture is catching up to what we've always believed about grace. This isn't the first time this room has changed about what is in the center of the altar area. When this sanctuary was dedicated in 1971, it incorporated a table with a surrounding rail at the center of the altar instead of a pulpit, as earlier sanctuaries had. That was its own answer to a question: what does this space need to say about the table at that time? And it's not just one change. If you look back through the years, the shape of the altar area has shifted more than once. There was a season when the pulpit stood at the center, a season when acolytes lit candles at the rail, framing a smaller table, a season of kneeling rails for confirmation and communion. Every generation leaves a faithful witness to those who follow. Our task isn't to erase their witness, but to ask how we faithfully witness to our own generation. Here's what's different now. Without the rail, your eye goes straight to the table. Nothing stands between you and it. And that says something simple, and I think something true. You don't have to know the right way to come. You don't have to know the right words or the posture or years of practice approaching the table. You just come. That's part of why we made this change, but it's not the only reason. Over the years, our worship ministries have grown and diversified. Musicians, vocalists, handbell ringers, children, youth, other leaders regularly take part in worship service. The area around the altar table has increasingly become a place where people lead the congregation in worship, and the rails made that space harder to use well. By removing them, we've opened the front of the sanctuary. Our handbell choir, children's choir, youth choir, praise team, and others can now gather and lead more comfortably. The space can flex to fit whatever worship moment calls for throughout the Christian year. This isn't about making the table or worship less sacred. It's about creating a space that better supports the ministry happening there. A front of the sanctuary where people of all ages can participate, share their gifts, and help lead the congregation in praising God. Whatever your feelings about the rail, and I understand them, I want to say plainly what this has always been about. Before it was about music or ministry or flexibility, it was never really about the rail, but about meeting the Lord. That's what drew people forward for decades. That's what the table still offers, exactly as it did before. The furniture changed, but what happens when you come has not. We believed it would be difficult to imagine this change only on paper. Seeing the space and worshiping in it gives us all a better foundation for discerning together what serves the mission and the ministry of this church. Our plan is to live with this for a while, to worship in the space and see how it serves us, and then bring it back to church council for further discussion. This isn't the last word. It's part of an ongoing conversation about what better serves what God is doing here today in the life of this great church. Thank you for your support. Look forward to seeing you soon.